Well, you can be an advocate and help the Alzheimer's Association. Joining us today, Communications and Public Policy Director with the Alzheimer's Association Northwest Ohio chapter, Steve Olding, to tell us more. And thanks for joining us, Steve.
Holly, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Okay, so we need to plan ahead because we have a deadline coming, but you want to get some people gathered to head to Columbus in April and talk about Alzheimer's. So what's the reason and the purpose behind this day?
Sure. I think, Holly, a lot of people know that the association, the Alzheimer's Association, does a lot in regards to education and care and support for those living with Alzheimer's. They also realize the association is very involved in advancing Alzheimer's research. But what a lot of people don't realize is that we also, one of our mission pillars is to advance better public policy for those living with Alzheimer's disease, to ensure that our state and federal governments are addressing those needs. And one of the ways that we do that is basically having our volunteer advocates, people that are willing to share their stories with legislators, talk about the challenges they face on a daily basis living with Alzheimer's. And what we do is we basically will have an Ohio Advocacy Day at the Ohio State House. That's going to be Wednesday, April 6th. And it's an opportunity for advocates from across the state to come out. We have a luncheon program at the State House atrium, and we also, more importantly, do our meetings with members of the General Assembly, which allows those volunteers to tell their stories and to explain to the legislators what needs to be done in regards to advancing better public policy in the state of Ohio.
Steve, is there any specific public policy or issue that you really want to focus on this year when you go to Columbus?
Yes, there's two. Actually, the biggest one is House Bill 23, which basically would ensure enhanced dementia training for our first responders in Ohio, our police and EMS. You know, there's a growing number as the number of individuals who living with Alzheimer's continues to increase. There's an estimated 220,000 in Ohio right now. Those interactions with our police and first responders becomes more regular. And unfortunately, the level of the dementia training, and we're hearing this from law enforcement, we're hearing this from EMS people from across the state, that level of training needs to be improved. So House Bill 23 would address that. So that's one of the big points we're pushing at the Advocacy Day.
Right, I could understand how they would need like some extra training. I mean, we're also hearing about, mental health training that, first responders are the first ones there, and they need to learn how to deal with situations like that.
Holly, that's correct. And it's very, with some who have dementia, their communication skills are an issue. Interaction, individuals that wander. So it's a unique situation in many times, even for the best trained law enforcement or the most veteran law enforcement and EMS people. So, we feel this dementia training, a couple hours a year, would go a long way in helping ensure that they're better prepared for dealing with individuals with dementia.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I assume also having people tell their stories in front of lawmakers, that is really effective too.
Yes, it is, and it's so very important. The other aspect of the other thing that we're looking at for the Advocacy Day is to make sure that the protection of the Alzheimer's respite line item, Ohio, and we appreciate the fact that the General Assembly for more than 30 years has been funding Alzheimer's respite programs, including those offered by the Alzheimer's Association for more than since 1987, in fact. And so I think it's very clear that the General Assembly and the administrations over that period of time recognize the importance of supporting these programs. Families living with Alzheimer's, it's very difficult, and each situation is unique. And each situation is uniquely challenging. So for those advocates to tell their stories, it does have a great impact. And I think it educates the legislators. It's been 3 years since we've been able to do an in-person event because of COVID. So, it's really in many ways reintroducing ourselves to the General Assembly and letting them know that while, it's been very challenging with COVID and families have been dealing with that, Alzheimer's hasn't gone away, and people are still living daily with the struggles of that disease.
Okay, the deadline is March 10th, so if you're interested in joining you guys, hopefully they get online or give you a call and get signed up. So great stuff, Steve. Thanks for telling us about it.
Holly, thank you so much.
All right, don't go away. Noon Edition continues in a moment.
Do you have a wet, nasty, smelly